Nyaya Sutra of Gautama begins with enumerating 16 Padarthas. Generally, by the term Padartha, we think of some substance, some substance which you can touch or perhaps see, some tangible things, or you think of Padartha in the sense of something in the world. Here, the idea of Padartha is a little bit different. Here, the idea is the various aspects of any logical discussion, any philosophical discussion, the various components of a philosophical discussion, they are being called Padartha here. Okay. And they are also called Tattva here. In fact, in the Sutra, they are called Tattva, but overall, in general, in Nyaya Vaisheshika, they call them Padartha. Okay, so Padarth is a more common terminology for them. So we will try to see what these 16 are. First two, let us take the first two together, are Praman and Prameya. I mentioned both of them last time. Praman is the means of valid knowledge, and Prameya is the object of valid knowledge. Now, when we have any kind of philosophical discussion, then it will be always about something, right? Like Atma. Okay, so suppose there is a discussion happening between Charvak and Vedanta. Let us take this example. So Charvak will say there is no Atma because only Pratyaksha is the Pramana. What we see is what exists. We don't see any supernatural or immaterial substance called Atma. We just see this body. So therefore, there is no Atma. Vedanta will say there is Atma, and it will give the source as the Shruti. Then it will also give some reasons. So while Charvaka is depending upon Pratyaksha Praman, Vedanta is depending upon Shabda Praman. And the discussion is happening about Atma. Okay, so there is Praman and there is Prameya. Prameya is the Atma. Praman is whatever they are, basing their views on. So these are the first two things. Initially, I will present the ideas on this slide in brief, and then we will also talk about their definitions on the preceding slides. Then comes Sanshay. Sanshay means doubt. Any discussion can happen only when there is a doubt to be clarified, that whether there is an Atma or not. Is this body the Atma or not? So there is a doubt which is to be clarified. And then there has to be a prayojan, a purpose for which the discussion is taking place. The prayojan is obviously to eliminate doubt and arrive at some decision or some conclusion. Prayojan is, what is the discussion about? What do you want to arrive at? So we want to arrive at a clear understanding of whether there is an Atma or not. So that can be the prayojan here. Then each party gives some drishtant, some example to prove its point, right? So suppose Charvaka gave the example that we don't need to presume any non-material substance like Atma just because there is consciousness in the body, because consciousness is the product of the body. Just as the betel leaf, the pan patta, and the katha and the chuna, they come together to produce red color. In the same way, this body is producing consciousness. So they have given a drishtanta over here. It is not a logic or it is not a reason. It is a drishtanta, an example, which is also important to communicate what you want to say. And then you present your siddhant. Siddhant is what your view is. So therefore there is no Atma. Therefore we don't need to postulate an Atma just because there is consciousness. This is the siddhant of the Charvaka. Okay, siddhant is what is the view? What do you want to prove? Then the arguments that we give, uh, they are called tarka, and each component of the tarka is called avyav. So for example, I give the argument, the Vedantin gives the argument that, okay, you're saying that consciousness is being produced by the body, but when the person is dead, the body is still there, but there is no consciousness, right? So consciousness is not the product of the body. So it gave you this argument. It has three statements in it. Okay, all these three statements will be referred to as avyav, the members of the argument, and the whole thing will be called tark. Now you may remember that last time I said tark is not a valid means of knowledge. It is true. It is not the praman over here. Praman is the Shruti. Vedanta is basing its view on the Shruti. Shruti is saying there is Atma. It is only using the tarka to explain the Shruti. So tark is not the praman, but tark is important. Then we arrive at a nirnay, that therefore there is Atma. There is Atma. The doubt has been clarified. Nirnay. And this whole discussion will be called Vad. Vad. Okay, Vad is the ideal kind of a philosophical discussion in which both parties are interested in arriving at the truth. You know, they are not interested in defeating each other. They are not interested in winning the argument. They are interested in arriving at the truth. Okay, so that is what we call Vada. It is the ideal form of philosophical discussion. But then there can be another type of discussion which they call Jalp. Jalp. This is what we see these days. It's all about winning the argument. You don't care about the truth. You just want to win the argument. That is what they call Jalp. Jalp may also have all these components, but it is the prayojan is not to arrive at the truth or anything. It is about just winning. Then a third type of argument, a discussion will be called Vitand. Vitand is also something we see a lot. That in Vitanda, a person does not want to establish his view really. He just wants to de-establish the other person's view. Okay, so he will just refute and reject everything the other person is saying, you know, by giving all kinds of strange, illogical reasons. It is a destructive kind of an discussion. So that is Vitanda. Then we have something called Hetvabhas. Hetvabhas is a fallacy in our reasoning. So suppose a person gives some reason which is faulty, which is based on some fallacious reasons. So that is what we call Hetvabhas. Nyaya has talked about at least 5 kinds of Hetvabhas. the 5 ways people can make mistake in their reasoning. Okay, so for example, someone says that where there is fire, there is smoke. Suppose someone says this: where there is fire, there is smoke. That is not true. It is not true. Sometimes fire may have smoke, sometimes fire may not have smoke. Where there is smoke, there is fire. This much is certain. But where there is smoke, where there is fire, there is smoke, not certain. Only when the wood is wet that there is smoke. Okay, so there is another condition involved. If you miss out that condition, then the reasoning becomes fallacious. Okay, so this kind of fallacies is what we call hetvabhas, and Nyaya has dealt with various kinds of hetvabhas, which is important to understand if you want to understand logic. Then comes chhal. Chhal is, you know, this is one technique that people adopt when they are engaging in jalp and vitand. Okay, so suppose you are saying something. I totally deliberately misunderstand what you're saying. And then I start arguing against this different idea. You were talking about something else. I deliberately misunderstood your point of view, and I give an argument against that mistaken understanding. So you are doing chhal with the other person. I'll give you an example also when we look at the definition. Then jati. Jati is another problematic way of reasoning. So jati is based on some similarity you are arguing, but that similarity doesn't really apply here. So lot of times, like Charvaka also gave this example that just as pan patta and so on, they produce the red color, so the body produces consciousness. This kind of similarity they gave, you know or people give different kinds of analogies which are all mistakes. So those kinds of mistaken analogies are jati. And then there is nigrah. Nigrah means when a person realizes that he had misunderstood some key idea of the discussion, and he was arguing on the basis of this misunderstanding. The moment he realizes this, he will admit defeat, that, oh, I did not understand that this is what the discussion was about. So it is an admission of your defeat. So that is nigrah. All right. So these are the various components of any philosophical discussion.